Hey, y'all, so glad you're here. I may look a little banged up, and it's not from what I'm about to tell you about. I actually have some skin cancer that I'm taking care of with some cream, and so I have lesions on my face. So, isn't that fun for any of you watching on YouTube? You know, there's some more opposition there for you, but we're going to get through it. So, I react differently to challenges in my life and marriage than I used to. The way I deal with things is healthier. I feel so much better. I still have plenty to do and work on, and circumstances continue to present themselves in my life to teach me and to humble me. I have gotten in two car accidents in the past 9 days. The first accident happened in a canyon nearby, notorious for being dangerous. I hit black ice in our truck. I slid sideways and then did two 360s before careening down a hill backwards and breaking through at least 70 feet of fencing. I was going really fast backwards. It was super scary. I am convinced angels protected me. A couple of other people told me that they'd received promptings that I'd been protected and were told to tell me. And I felt the truth of their words as they shared with me. I fasted a random day a few days later and went to the temple as a way to express my gratitude for walking away from that accident. I had a sacred experience in the temple that confirmed to me again that my ancestors, specifically those who I've been doing temple work for, had helped protect me. When I finished at the temple, I felt that my sacrifice had been accepted and that I could break my fast. The light and truth and knowledge was almost worth going through the accident to receive. So, fast forward 9 days later, a friend wasn't able to pick up her children from the bus stop, so I picked them up for her. I was now driving my husband's car since the truck was damaged. As I was driving the speed limit through an intersection, I noticed a car on my left and I realized it was going to hit me. I swerved, but not in time. The driver smashed the left side of my car, and she said she didn't even see me until she hit me. Thankfully, my daughter and I and the two neighbor kids were not hurt. In both of these accidents, my husband was careful to ask if I was okay before asking about the vehicles. He was so thankful that I was okay after the crash in the canyon, and he expressed it multiple times in prayer and otherwise. But after the second accident, my adult daughter sent me a text. She mentioned that dad had sent a picture of the smashed car, but she didn't know I was the one driving. I stewed about this. It kept coming back into my mind over and over again. The main thought was he cares more about his cars than about me. In my mind, sending the smashed car picture represented what mattered most to him. I wanted him to talk about what had happened to me, not about what the car looked like. This is always when I get into trouble. I expect my husband to think and act like I wish he would think and act. I didn't even realize how upset I was about this until later that night in our bedroom. He made another comment and I erupted. I asked why he sent the picture of the wrecked car to our adult children and didn't even tell them about me. He said he told them about me. And then I asked, then why does our daughter not even know it was me? Then I said something I regretted. I said, you always care more about the vehicles than me. That was, of course, not true. Even as I said it, as the words were coming out of my mouth, I realized it was a false belief, but I had lots of evidence for it. Thoughts are tricky. They are so true. They feel so true, at least. I had practiced that belief since the early days of my marriage when I had scraped the side of our new car against our garage, and my husband was so upset. I hadn't even known anything could set him off that would make him that mad. And I remember feeling really, really hurt. I'm not sure about you, but there are things that have come up over and over again in my marriage that have repeatedly created disconnection between us. And vehicles are just one of them. I felt justified for my anger towards him. But darn it, because I have done this work and enough of it, I knew it wasn't warranted. And I knew I had work to do myself, which was some great accountability. And accountability is hard and it's humbling, but it is the way to freedom. Freedom from pain and misery and anger, contention. But in this incident, I was contentious. I didn't do the work on this even once I was aware that part of it was mine. It was a brutal day and I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. Many of us have been taught, don't go to bed angry. I disagree with that statement. I've told many couples, go to bed angry. Often things look so much better in the morning after some sleep, but you do whatever works best for you. In the morning, I started to think through the situation. This is the work that I teach. My prevailing emotion was anger. I've learned that defining anger as a secondary emotion helps me to understand myself better. So this is why searching the web, I found a really good explanation, better than I can explain it, on a website called the New Ranch Hope. And I quote, studies have identified anger as being a secondary emotion. A secondary emotion is an emotion fueled by other emotions. For example, if you become hurt in some way, and this was me, I was actually hurt, I wasn't angry. You might express this negative emotion instead of emotional and physical pain. It might be easier to express anger than express hurt. Hurt can make you feel vulnerable. And when you feel helpless, you might feel as if you need to protect yourself. When you are angry, you might feel under attack or frustrated. Masking your feelings of sadness, hurt, or guilt with anger can be easier than experiencing the primary emotion, which is hurt in my case. Coming to terms with primary emotions can be challenging to manage. Emotions like grief, sadness, loss, embarrassment, uncertainty, and hurt are all hard to feel because anger's easy to feel. It can distract you from experiencing the healing, the pain that you can, from experiencing and healing the pain you may feel inside. Among the most triggering emotions is frustration. So I think of frustration myself as like the precursor to anger. And this is what they believe too in this article. So this is the end of it. Frustration is often experienced when you feel helpless or out of control. Over time, this emotion can cause your mood to stew until reaching an angry state. When anger happens, you might respond to your frustration in ways that feel good at the moment, but are not likely healthy. You might lash out at others while trying to regain control. This is what I had done. I had let frustration build after my husband sent the picture and turned to anger towards him. Thankfully, I now know how to mend fences instead of build walls when things like this come up in my marriage. I've worked so hard on my marriage, and I'm not going to allow myself to go backwards. The two phrases that come to mind as helping me the most are, I'm sorry, or I forgive you. I apologized to my husband before he left for work the next morning, and then I did my morning routine. This is the easiest way for me to see things as they really are, to daily repent as the prophet suggested, to be accountable. As I prayed and I studied my scriptures, to have the Spirit with me, then I wrote in my gratitude paragraph, and that is where I see things differently. This is when I begin to focus on the blessings versus the problem, and whatever you focus on will increase in your life. In my paragraph, I remembered how blessed I was that we all walked away unharmed. For a second time in my case. Next, I visualized my dreams and goals, and I recognized all the things that God has already given me and what I hope to receive in the future. Then I wrote my daily model. I always ask, what isn't quite as good today as it could be? Now, my C line, are just the facts, was Jeff, my husband, and another C was that he sent a picture of the wrecked car to my adult children. My thought was he cares more about that car than me. My feeling was hurt. What I did was I was spinning in anger at the picture of the car. I erupted at him. I moved away from him in the bed. I didn't snuggle. I didn't apologize. I waited for his apology. And my outcome, or the result, the experience that I created for myself, was that I kept finding more and more evidence that he cares more about what happened to the car than to me. So this is where I got some great awareness. I did the work of trying to receive revelation around this circumstance, which always helps me to see my part clearly. I often ask, how could I see this incident through Christ's eyes? And this is what came to me. A good exercise is to imagine Christ there with you as you confront the problems you want to discuss. If he were right there with you and Jeff as a mediator, what would you say or do differently? So I thought about it, and this was my answer. I would have said that I knew he truly did care about me, that he has shown me over and over again that he does care about me. I would say that I felt hurt that Jeff didn't focus more on me and how rattling it was to get in another accident within days of the first one. Both accidents really shook me up, and I had really scared me. And I should have expressed that. What would Christ say to each of you was the next question. He'd have compassion for what I'd gone through, and he'd also have compassion for Jeff, that he's the one who will do all he will do to fix the situation of two wrecked cars, which both are needed by our family. The next one, how do you think your perspective would change if you saw the situation through Christ's eyes? He wouldn't judge either of us for our reactions. He would understand them both. He would be loving and kind. He would help me recognize that this mortal opposition doesn't need to create marital opposition. And this is the last question. What would your tone have been? I would be vulnerable about how hard this was instead of defensive and angry. Vulnerability, I have to say, is really hard for me. This is an area of improvement. It's something I've prayed for and find a really hard time accessing. For me, it's really protective to be angry instead. And what I feel like I was being taught through these questions is that if I am vulnerable, then my marriage relationship is going to be way better. And I'm going to get the reaction, or probably get more of the reaction that I would like from my husband from him when I'm just brutally honest with where I'm at. So what I got after I answered these questions was, these questions will help you to be more like Christ. So I think there's some questions that I need to revisit whenever I'm feeling like I was the other night. So asking myself these questions helped me to see that cars are to Jeff what my pickleball court and my plans and the things that I love are to me. I'm going to be upset when they are messed up. It doesn't mean that I love it if the sprinklers that Jeff has set up don't hit my plants and they die. It does mean that we both have things that we care about a lot and spend a lot of time and effort taking care of. It's good to be good stewards of things we have been given. There is nothing wrong with that. The only part that matters, though, is not allowing it to corrode a relationship, because any of these hobbies or materialistic things, they are all temporary and we'll leave them here. So the thing that we will take with us is our relationship with others and how we treated them and how they treated us and how we reacted and how we chose to be accountable or repent for the things that we do or say that aren't in line with being a Christ-like person. So I created a new intentional model that felt true and right. But I must say, it would not have felt true and right if I hadn't done this work. And it is work, but I tell you, it is so worth the effort. So my C line, or the circumstances or the facts, again, Jeff, and then sending a picture of the smashed car to my 3 adult children. The T line, then this is my thought, he's the only one who will fix this, go through the insurance, do all the work. My feeling was gratitude. My action line was to apologize and then text him thanks for helping me with the cars and then move on. My result was that I felt differently. I felt blessed that Jeff's hobby is cars, that he has so much knowledge about cars and way more than I do, and that he always makes sure that I have a vehicle to drive. I also decided to see if I had any hurt to process. Interestingly, I didn't, about the accident that had just happened. after I'd done this work. But I did realize I needed to allow hurt about the incident so long ago when we were first married. So, literally over 25 years ago. It didn't even take that long. I cried a little bit, but the feeling was quickly replaced with peace and healing. And that incident will not ever be a thing anymore. I believe that underlying hurt from years ago is part of why I reacted the way I did this past week. I'm working hard to heal from as many of these, what some counselors call triggers, as I can in my life. Then I won't be surprised by outbursts when stressful things resurface and old wounds create unhelpful reactions. Every marriage will be hit with accidents of every kind. The longer we are married, the more we have to chalk up to experience. These circumstances messed up my marriage for so long because I didn't know how to handle them differently. I didn't know how to perceive them differently. I didn't know how to feel better. And I'm just so grateful for a pattern and principles that always lead me to truth and light instead of darkness and misery. Christ's way is the way to peace. That is one emotion that Satan absolutely cannot mimic. And I have so much more peace in my marriage and in my other relationships by doing the work of being accountable for whatever's mine, apologizing when I do things wrong, and moving forward. Seek and expect miracles in your life. My greatest miracle is having the marriage I never imagined I would have. I am so grateful. We'll see you next week.